Tell me, what do you know of Barnabas Collins? Character-wise, every sort of angle that I tried, I kept coming back to Jonathan Frid. He really did something beautiful with that character. And so my Barnabas is really based on his character with maybe a few other ingredients thrown in.
The great thing about being an actor is transformation, becoming somebody else.
I always called Johnny sort of the modern-day Lon Chaney because he's the man of 1,000 faces. I mean, he always has a different face in every movie.
He always puts 100% into characters, so I was excited to see what this one would be.
Cannot imagine how thirsty I am. Tim and I felt very strongly that a vampire should look like a vampire. Nothing really happens until the makeup goes on. When you feel and look differently, you start to see the character. For more than 20 years, you know, of working with Tim, how long I've tried to get him to let me wear, like, you know, a fake nose or fake ears or this or that. He's always, you know, oh, no, come on, man, you know, not that, you know.
He wanted a new nose on Sweeney Todd. He's always trying to cover up his beauty, frankly.
Finally, I got the nose and I got the ears.
It's always fun to see him on the first hair and makeup test, because I go like, what has he made you into this time?
Especially on this character, this makeup is very theatrical.
Joel's vision matched perfectly with mine and perfectly with Tim's.
I wanted to make his ears a little bigger, and Johnny wanted to use a nose bridge appliance, you know, just to change his profile. So that's something that we started playing around with, multiple versions of that. Ultimately, we got to, you know, something that I personally am very happy with.
The makeup process, I think we got it down to about 2 hours, 2.5 hours every day. See me, derelict. Look into my eyes and deliver to me your innermost thoughts.
He reminded me sometimes of a creature from German expressionist cinema, kind of, you know, the way he moves, it's very unusual.
Tim comes to me and says, what about really long fingers, like really long extensions on your hands? And at that point, I sort of became, you know, how he used to be with me. I was like, well, but it'll be so much longer in the chair, and I gotta glue these on, and it's, you know, be hard to He's like, oh, but that'll be great, you know. And he was right. The fingers really made the character. You shall be my loyal servant until such time as I release you.
Just the way he starts, you know, doing this hypnotizing thing. I mean, it's like I almost felt like I was getting hypnotized. You know what I mean? You just see this, like these unreal, you know, fingers coming at you, and just the way he was manipulating and then looking over into his eyes and stuff. It was a trip. Just extending the fingers that much, you know, by 2 or 3 inches. It just added a whole other opportunity. You want to use your hands more, you know. So I learned how to pick things up about 3 inches from where my fingers actually were, you know.
At the end of the day, when we take the fingertips off, he's mentioned several times, it's almost like he's missing part of himself.
I found the character on a whole other level once the wardrobe came into play. It was a very elegant, sort of slim look. And the second that, you know, as an actor, you put on that suit of your character, that armor, you stand differently, you turn differently. It makes all the difference.
This is Johnny's costume. It's his coat that he wears in the 70s with his 70s suit. We opted that Barnabas had a cravat, decided to go with that instead of neckties on him. But this coat's an homage to the early series. And then all his different suits. They're late 60s, early 70s, but with a nod in the collar to the 18th century.
He's more like a Lon Chaney or a Boris Karloff kind of actor than he is a movie star kind of guy.
His whole character is a painting. I mean, he's a work of art.
It really is kind of trying to create a full kind of new character each and every time.
What we were all going for was classic monster, you know, classic monster look, you know, like something that you would have seen on the cover of Famous Monsters of Filmland or Fangoria or something. And I think that's what we got. We knew that these sets needed to be huge and rich and beautiful.
I think the audience is interested in the world as well as the story.
They're great sets, huge and gothic and dark.
Rick Heinrich was the designer. I've worked with Rick off and on for many years.
There was some unspoken understanding and this kind of shorthand.
We looked for different fishing villages, but a Maine fishing village is quite a specific looking type of thing, and it was hard to find anywhere else, even going to Maine.
I guess the research really came from trawling through lots of pictures of East Coast, Maine. Interestingly, Tim would always say, I like all that stuff. I don't want to be beholden to it because this is going to be our town.
There is something about being in the middle of a real setting that does help you organically be.
So instead of creating it, you know, digitally on a green screen, we actually built that, you know, fishing port.
Rick is from the East Coast, so that was something I think he had in his DNA.
Once we decided we were building Collinsport, the infrastructure was the first thing that had to go into place.
They started off with a water tank of approximately 100 foot by 80 foot, of a 3'6" deep.
The tank took about 3 weeks to actually fill, so there had to be a cutoff point for construction. One of the great pleasures has been being able to put fishing boats right into the water, have them floating when the water's moving.
3, 2, 1, action!
What he did with the backlot was astonishing. I've never seen anything on that scale on any film I've ever done. There were boats in the water and cars driving and people. It was beautiful. And real, it just felt real, really real.
The house and the environment is a character in it. You know, Colin Wood is a character.
Have you ever seen such majesty? Every day. The perfect marriage of European elegance and American enterprise.
They had to go from being a newly built manor to a decaying manor. And so the details of that were really important.
But beneath the dust and the cobwebs and the mess was an inanimate object that almost lives and breathes.
Barnabas knows the house very well. He built it, so he knows where all the secrets are.
I know the body of this mansion as well as I know my own. Every nook, every corner, every secret. There's nothing worth stealing, I'm afraid. Sadly, Elizabeth uses it for the badminton equipment. That's what I was looking for.
When craftsmen build something fantastic and it works, it just has that special, magic on film.
The first time Barnabas enters, he's actually kind of caressing the sculptures and commenting on the fine craftsmanship. So we really put a lot of effort into creating a very beautiful and richly detailed environment.
Everything is carved, like each little scale on the pillar, and every mural on the wall is painted by hand.
Being on the sets and feeling the textures of the rooms was an important element, not just for me, but for the actors, getting the tone of it.
Seeing Barnabas Collins in his makeup with this environment felt wonderfully creepy.
It was just kind of dark and beautiful and authentic.
I just can't believe it when I walk into a set that I'm not on a location. My brain's just tricked every day.
Being able to walk out around the studio every day and kind of see the progress of something being built is one of the joys of filmmaking, is to see those kinds of things being created.
It's been a great pleasure just walking around there and feeling like we're really in Maine.
The world that Rick Heinrichs created for us to live in and act in and work in was absolute, perfection.
Ruined it! You little Carolyn, enough.
Enough, David.
The initial desire to take Dark Shadows and make it into a feature film is the idea of this highly, highly dysfunctional family.
The Collins family is odd. They're that family in the neighborhood. that everybody talks about, the weird family.
It's a real ensemble cast. You kind of needed things to have that internal working amongst each other.
Children!
Especially with the family.
This is such a non-average family, but we treat it like an average family.
There were people that I felt could be Dark Shadows people and others that aren't. That was a strange sort of criteria of casting.
Angelique! Get out of my house!
Johnny grew up watching the series, and it was the same with Michelle.
You don't get more diehard, fan of the Dark Shadows series than Michelle.
I worked with her on Batman Returns Catwoman, which was actually one of my favorite performances of anybody I've worked with.
Tim said when he went to cast the movie, he thought about the weird factor, which of course I love, that he thought of me.
She understands that type of comedy.
How soon can the horses be ready?
We don't have horses. We have a Chevy.
We do these dinner and breakfast scenes around a table where the whole family's there. It's a family drama with highly comedic elements.
He's not staying with us forever, is he?
Tim and I were going for the idea of this dining area where everyone sat down, but no one really likes each other.
Carolyn! Will you please turn that noise down?
The silence in the scene meant so much more than anything that we could say.
I think it'd be really fun to be Carolyn. She's this like Alice Cooper loving, Steve Miller band listening hippie. The whole movie, everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's just teenage angst, why are you always so mad?
Chloe tapped into that troubled teenager thing really, really well.
Tim always has such a great eye for casting, and he really has found a mini Michelle. You really believe that it could be mother and daughter.
They have their typical mother of a teenager. She hates me. I hate her. No, we're not getting along.
Carolyn, this is Miss Winters. Please, call me Vicky.
Victoria is the character that we kind of come into the Dark Shadows world through.
You're a liar. I can tell you now, just from a person's face. Yours says, I have secrets.
Bella looks like a person who's been reincarnated. That's why she was just the right person for Victoria.
It's really fun. I mean, I've been fortunate enough that I haven't had to shoot Josette and Vicky on the same day, but it's kind of great because the look is so different. It makes it a lot easier to play the two separate characters.
It's gonna scare you. Are you scared?
Terrified beyond belief.
How long has it been?
It's been 20 minutes.
Vicky relates to David because we're both haunted.
The best way I could describe it is that Cullen looks like a kid who looks like he sees ghosts.
Tore us to pieces in one scene. He turned it on like that, and I got really jealous.
This is probably the best sort of first film I could have been on. Everybody's really friendly and extremely witty and funny.
What if I told you about cutting holes in the sheets? Those are Egyptian cotton. Exactly what I've been saying. This family could use some balls.
Johnny Lee Miller looked like the original Roger. Without even knowing, I don't think he knew the series at all or anything like that. He's like one of my favorites in it.
It's nice to play someone who's not very nice and a bit of an idiot, I would go as far as to say, because I'm not an idiot at all, so it's nice to get to play one.
Chop, chop, Willie, I'm starving. God help me if it's another bone-dry pot roast.
Awaken.
Willie's kind of somewhat of a disheveled, sloppy kind of guy. In this version, he's the servant to the family. He's quite different than the Willie Loomis from the soap opera.
Many years ago, Jackie sent me an audition that he did on his own, and I was sort of blown away by it.
I'll keep on drinking and trusting my luck. He's a different character for me. I definitely looked at a lot of drunk people on the internet. That was very helpful.
He's a murderer!
Dr. Hoffman is David's psychiatrist. She was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks when David was 5 or 6, and she's been there ever since.
She's overstayed her welcome.
You're the doctor. Yeah, and you're the nanny. And she's the bitch.
We've done about 15,000 films together, Helen and I. Without even saying anything or trying anything, we almost like try to out-weird each other.
I don't know how flattered Helen was to be offered the role of an aging alcoholic psychiatrist, but somebody's got to do it, right?
He saw me as the alcoholic psychiatrist, as if it was really, really obvious.
I don't know how many times I've killed Helena on films. Tim constantly has me killing his wife in his movies. I don't know what that means.
I know that Tim is so thrilled about the cast and everybody in it.
I think it's probably the most fun I've seen Tim have on a set.
Tim actually would sometimes laugh off camera in the middle of a take. Because everybody was so funny and so weird.
Luckily, at the end of it all, everybody that was in it, for me, was like a Dark Shadows person, whether they like it or not.
What is the year?
1972.
1972.
1972 may be the worst time aesthetically in, sort of human existence.
It's so weird to be doing a period piece of the period when you were in high school.
I grew up in the 1970s, so for me the 70s are incredibly nostalgic.
It's really scary when you get to my age and your actual childhood becomes a period in cinema.
That's where I keep my macrame.
A disgraceful misuse.
Of all the times he gets let out of a box, I think, it's a strange moment in time.
What was particularly fun was dealing with the 1970s, early 70s, late 60s culture. The movies of the period playing at our theater, the wardrobe, the hairstyles, the attitude and feel of it. To some degree, we see that period a little bit through the eyes of now and think, what were we thinking at the time?
Indeed.
So it's not too big of a leap to then try to see it through Barnabas's eyes, who's coming to it from 1776.
What sorcery is this?
Reveal yourself, tiny songstress.
Calling sport in the 70s is really cool. It's 70s, but there's a little edge to it. It's kind of, Burton 70s.
Walking onto these sets, you feel like you've just been transported into the 70s.
In our appliance store, you will see hi-fis and stereos and records in the window and flashing lights and a lot of the elements that make the kids happy.
One set which was tremendous fun was Carolyn's bedroom. It was a 1970s room full of posters, LPs, soft toys, carpeted in wonderful orange shag pile carpet.
Kids of that era accepted macrame owls and resin grapes and lava lamps, pet rocks. Everything's absurd.
I think there's some very good design in the 70s. I had a great time working with that period. It's always fun to examine a period within a parameter of a story with Tim because you sort of edit what the period is.
Pauline somehow makes it feel kind of timeless at the same time that she's staying true to the period.
I mean, the fashion definitely is a main part of the 1972 part of it, and I love that. My character in particular is super duper 70s.
Caroline's clothes we had a lot of fun with because they're, a little more mod and young and with bright psychedelic colors. She wears, the typical sort of more pop sort of patterns in her clothes.
Chop, chop, Willie, I'm starving.
I've had this most amazing costume scenario. I mean, I think I've had a different outfit for every scene, all personally tailored and all very, very loud. It's been fantastic, some fantastic suits, loud fabrics. I have some hair also, we should mention that.
Colleen just never misses. Her taste is impeccable. Her approach to every character was right on the money.
I'm rather fond of the music of the day.
music was so defining of that period. The Billboard Top 100, I mean, you'd have Alice Cooper and the Carpenters, Sly and the Family Stone, or, you know what I mean? It was like, it was all over the place.
It was fun to just listen to the, you know, the sounds of '72.
If you're really telling that story and you're really representing that era, you got to get the right stuff.
I love the 70s. Like, it's my favorite time era. Like, if I could have lived in that era, I would love that.
It's like going back in time, and that particular era does seem stranger than most.
Tim, you know, he embraced the novelty of the 70s, just turned it into art. It was fantastic.
What is it you want, Angelique?
Your love.
I loved the relationship between Angelique and Barnabas. It was very electric, kind of love-hate relationship. When he rejects her for Josette, she's not very happy.
There's the monster!
She locks me in a coffin for 200 years.
You know, as we all do when we're a bit hurt.
To hold a grudge for 200 years and to make his entire family pay. Yeah, she's the ultimate bad date.
We've all had kind of relationships like that, haven't we? Some of us.
Release me!
Through the centuries, Angelique has become the most powerful businesswoman in colored sport. And then when Barnabas reemerges, it's kind of overwhelming for Angelique. She wants to own him, to possess every little bit. She's just convinced that he loves her as much as she loves him. But he won't admit it.
A whore of Beelzebub, succubus of Satan, vulgar, hideous serpent, harlot of the devil, snake.
No one talks like you anymore, Barnabas.
There's quite an intense sexual whirlwind that we've become involved in. You know, it required harnesses, as it, you know, as I mean, as it happens to be.
That was a regrettable turn of events.
Everything is perfect about Angie. She's almost like she's wearing a mask. And, you know, it's like perfect makeup, the red lips, blonde hair, very sophisticated, glamorous. And little by little, since the moment Barnabas has come out of the coffin, she starts to crack up. There's something very human about her. You know, her heart's been broken. She's just a very damaged person.
None of this would have happened if you just loved me.
It was work, you know, it was extraordinary. The transition from profound, deep, obsessive love to pain and then rage. The transitions were flawless.
I cursed your family, my Barnabas. They kept us apart. They never understood we're the same.
Everything is magnified with her. Her pain, her desire, her vengeance.
She's completely cuckoo.
You cannot love Angelique. That is your curse.
It's such an extreme character. She's not completely mad. Tiny bit.
Missed me. How, pray, does one throw a happening?
Alice Cooper.
There was no way that I could pass up the opportunity of Barnabas looking at what he thinks is a woman called Alice Cooper and saying, my God, that's the ugliest woman I've ever seen.
They called me up and they said, you know, we needed an icon from that era. I was elated to do it.
When I was a kid, one of the first little films I did, I used part of the soundtrack of Welcome to My Nightmare.
Tim and I kind of have the same background. We watched all the same horror movies. We have exactly the same horror history.
His kind of style matches what we're doing, you know, in the film, going into this kind of theatrical character.
Perhaps you should go and acquaint yourself with the evening's entertainment.
One of my favorite songs of all time is also one of Tim's favorite songs of all time. This thing called The Ballad of Dwight Fry.
We're doing the straitjacket scene from Ballad of Dwight Fry, which connects up with one of the members of the family just got out of the mental hospital. A lot of the things that I do on stage happen in the movie. Coming down the stairs, in the straitjacket scene, there's a lot of parallel things that happen. Tim is really good about seeing something and repeating it, but not making it exactly the same thing.
He had huge hits out in 71, 72, 73, and onward. Alice was there and made a huge impact on the music at that time.
Just to be in a film that, like, you know, there's a day on set and you show up and Alice Cooper's there.
Alice Cooper rocks, literally.
Just so intense up on that stage. You know, and it's 1972. It was astonishing. You know, it's Alice Cooper.
Ugliest woman I've ever seen.
We tried to ground the special effects in reality and sort of tap into the dark shadows world.
The television show was trying to pull off things that maybe didn't have the budget or the means to.
Dark Shadows, the series, did it well within whatever restrictions they had. But it's time to take it to another level.
We're building some fantastic, huge sets, but these things still need CG extension and they still need additional pieces.
Josette wandered helplessly towards Widow's Hill.
Key sequences take place around the Widow's Hill cliff.
Tim, most definitely, had done his time in the green rooms. We paid our respects to that color.
So we will build the top of it on stage, we'll build the base of it on the backlot, but the connecting pieces and the environment around that is a fully CG. Tim wanted it to be fairly sheer, tall, and sort of a hint of a sort of ski jump about it. It would rise towards the tip. We have a sequence at the foot of the cliff in fairly stormy seas.
It's a whole production deal. It's us having the water there, the dump tanks, the wind machines.
After the previous movie, working a lot on green screen, it was nice to work with sets again.
One of the other things that was astonishing in terms of scale was the cannery.
Before shooting, we thought about lots of different ways to do it. You never really know exactly what that is, but that's why it makes it exciting to do.
We had over 80 different types of pyrotechnic charges in there. It was a bloody big building, and when we first started, it was only on a drawing. So for me, okay, it says 120 foot long and this wide, and then when they start building it, you go, that's big, you know, I'll blow that up. I wanted to make the explosion not like a normal petrol look of yellow flame, which I hate anyway. We used methanol, which gave us a lovely red flame. It all went really well, everyone was very pleased.
The mansion was an enormous structure, and it was very tough scheduling because we burn it down.
This is a 1/3 scale model of Collingwood Manor, and we're burning the model down for the big end battle of the film.
The real reason for doing this 3rd scale is because of the scale of the flames. You get a sort of an organic interaction with the flames that you wouldn't get with compositing.
If you do it for real, you see what happens for real. So just tiny intricacies like glass shattering, you see it there in camera. If you do it CG, you have to figure out and then simulate all of these tiny little atmospheric moments of chaos.
It totally worked and looked just perfect.
The special effects and visual effects have just been fantastic on this.
Now with technology, they're able to tell Dark Shadows story with much bigger scope on a grander scale.
And there's something that was about the special effects that just gave it this sort of unique supernatural undercurrent.
Go on. Slaughter me. Show him what you are.
We'll show them what we are.
I feel like I've been shooting the Battle Royale for a month. It's a very long sequence, the ending. It's a very strong fight in words and physically.
The Battle Royale was a lot of smashing through walls and through floors and through ceilings and through furniture.
You got to get the climax of the film right. It's taking the characters and upping the absurdity level a number of notches. In that scene, Barnabas essentially goes straight for her.
I worshipped you.
Plagued me.
Adored you.
Have we, a movie, been around for 4 months and not shot as much as we did in that scene?
Any sequence that involves witches, vampires, werewolves, and supernatural effects, yeah, it's going to be very big.
3, 2, 1, action!
Vulgar, hideous serpent, I shall deliver you to hell's doorstep.
I had to be on wires quite a lot. But I loved him, so I would do anything for him.
Ava would come to us going, okay, I've got 3 hours free this afternoon, what can we rehearse? That makes our job so much easier.
She was a real trooper. You know, you're being yanked around the room on a harness with cables attached to you and stuff like that. It was pretty intense stuff.
She was fantastic. To work with Johnny as well, you know, he's ever such the professional. It's like, okay, your right foot has to go there. As soon as you see that coming, shift your weight to your left, and maybe then you have to spin off, and then we're going to take you up in the air. And he's like, yeah, you know, and people are touching him more, nails are getting done, all this will be going on in the meantime. And, you know, you're thinking, oh, has he soaked it in, has he took it in? You're like, Johnny, you good? Yeah, it's good. And then bang, every time.
We're growing into quite the fetching creature. Caroline, my God.
She's trying to get the message through to her family that none of you understand what I'm going through. I love stunts, obviously.
I was looking at this 15-year-old kid. I want to do all my own stunts. And I was like, yeah, okay, I've heard it so many times. And then, you know, like, and we show exactly what we want them to do. And then everyone changes their mind, but not with Chloe. She had to leap off the heights of maybe 25, 30 feet.
I got up and I did this like leap through the air. And she was like, okay. She was like, all right, I guess you can do stunts.
She literally had to do a leap of faith.
It's as if you're like Superman, because you literally, all you do is you just drop. You just let go of your whole body and you fly towards the ground and then it catches you.
This wide-eyed kid is going to rock the world when she gets a bit older. I think we're going to see a little action hero out of here for sure. We were flying people, jerking them out of the way, actors dropping maybe 40 feet. We had people being thrown through floors. It was such a busy film. I was very, very lucky and very privileged to work with these actors on this film because they were just fantastic. I don't know that Tim Burton actually knew he was making an action film on this. I think he was in denial of it even when he was reading the script, but yeah, it was a very, very busy film for stunts, and I don't think he'll ever call it an action film, but I think I might.
I'd always been attracted to horror films and things like that, even as a very young kid. So Tim and I were talking, and I said, we should do a vampire movie together, like a Nosferatu, like a real vampire movie with classic monsters.
We wanted to employ vampires, witches, werewolves, ghosts into one piece of material.
Tim's a big fan of classic horror movies. He brings a huge horror film vocabulary to this movie, and so when we do things like vampires, there's a real authenticity to it.
That means you're
A vampire, madam. And most regrettably so.
Who wants immortality? Can't think of anything more terrifying.
In the same way that like a lot of Vincent Price characters are sort of tortured souls, Barnabas, he's that kind of vampire.
It's sort of an homage to Bram Stoker's Dracula, the idea that two people who were separated by death and by time can find each other. Even if it's not quite the same person, it is the same spirit.
Vampires often happen to just run into their old loves, you know what I mean? This goes in line with a lot of sort of vampire mythology. Those are the kind of things that we kind of went back to the source.
I mean, Lugosi is known for being Dracula, but Christopher Lee's Dracula, there was something about his eyes, about his approach to the character. He was the great Dracula. One of my favorite moments on any film was I got to hypnotize Christopher Lee. I hypnotized Dracula.
My personal theory about why we love horror is we still have this primal need to be afraid.
People are taken out of their daily lives into nightmarish worlds. That's why they love it. Tim hasn't set out to frighten people, but he involves them through Johnny in the darkness.